This book argues that the Quran not only explains these strange events, but it also goes on to reveal the final destiny of Jerusalem. The Quran reveals a destiny that exposes the falsehood of that Jewish claim to truth above, and confirms the truth that came with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That destiny will witness such Jews being punished by Allah Most High, with the greatest divine punishment ever inflicted in history. At the very heart of the Quranic view of the destiny of Jerusalem and of the Holy Land is the declaration that when the final countdown in the last age arrives, Jews would be gathered from the diaspora in which they were broken up and dispersed, and to which they had been consigned, and would be brought back to the Holy Land as a mingled crowd. Quran, Banu Israel, 17-104. That divine promise has already been fulfilled. Jews have already returned to the Holy Land and reclaimed it. Their success has led such Jews to believe in the religious legitimacy of the State of Israel that they created. Islam explains that this Israel possesses no religious legitimacy. Rather, those Jews were deceived in the greatest act of deception history has ever witnessed. And the stage is now set for them to receive the greatest divine punishment ever inflicted upon any people. But before Banu Israel's final divine punishment takes place, there is great drama which is yet to unfold in the Holy Land, and indeed, in the world. This book describes some of that still unfolding drama. Indeed, the basic purpose of this book is to explain that Islam has a different view of the historical process as it pertains to the Holy Land. It is one in which time is fast running out for Israel. The Sea of Galilee will soon run dry. Jesus will return, and his return will witness the destruction of the State of Israel. Jews had the same truth that Muslims have, but they corrupted it. They had a sufficiently long period of time in Medina, after the Hijra, in which to accept the uncorrupted truth that came in the Quran, and to accept Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the last prophet of the God of Abraham, but they obstinately refused to do so. Time then ran out for them when Allah Most High changed the Qibla. See Quran, Al-Baqarah, 2:141145. It then became too late for them to avert the collective fate that now stares them in their faces. Jerusalem in the Quran. Implications for Muslims. What are the implications for those Muslims who read this book to the very end? The first is that Jerusalem and the Holy Land should be dearest of all to their hearts, as dear as Makkah and Medina. And the struggle to liberate the Holy Land from the abomination of the secular Euro-Jewish State of Israel should be the dearest of all struggles of liberation for the Muslim. If a Jew can leave USA or Europe or Russia and join the Israeli Defense Force and participate in the armed oppression of the Muslim and Christian Palestinian people in the Holy Land, then a Muslim should also have the same freedom to leave wherever he resides in the world and join in the armed resistance of the oppressed in the Holy Land. It is, in fact, a minimum tangible expression of faith in today's world that Muslims should at least have the desire in their hearts to participate in that armed resistance jihad in the Holy Land. Muslims should be warned, however, that as soon as they publicly declare their belief that the State of Israel will be destroyed by a Muslim army, and express the hope that they would be members of that army, they would eventually be intimidated and even arrested in order to silence them and make of them an example which would intimidate others. Secondly, the financial and other resources of the Muslim world should be directed primarily to assist in the cause of the liberation of the Holy Land from oppression. Thirdly, and most important of all, Muslims male as well as female must study the message and guidance of the Quran as it pertains to the destiny of Jerusalem, and then teach it to others. Zionist Jewish strategy. One dimension of the overall Zionist Jewish strategy has been the attempt to control Israel's strategic environment through cultivating alliances of expediency with the corrupt, permanently rich, predatory, and godless elite who now control the Arab Muslim communities around Israel on Israel's behalf. That elite is forced to maintain friendly ties with Israel in order to maintain their position of power, dominance, privilege, and wealth. Those Jews who are supporters of the State of Israel constantly put pressure on that elite to so oppress Muslims that they would either be forced into submission to Israel, or their opposition to Israel would pose no threat to the Jews. When Israel escalates its oppression in the Holy Land, and the Muslim Arab masses become enraged, then that ruling elite is forced, as a matter of survival, to adopt a posture of anger against Israel. This Jewish Arab elite strategy has today reached an advanced stage of implementation. It is the strategy of a people who have essentially abandoned the ethical heart of the religion of Abraham sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Zionist Jewish strategy requires that they one day abandon that Arab elite. Indeed, the strategy of abandoning that Arab elite has already begun. Even as we write, Israel is preparing for a war with the Arab Muslims that would result in an expansion of the territory of the Jewish state. Israel would then rule the entire region as the ruling state in the world, replacing USA as the ruling state. In response to all such Jewish strategies that seek to defy Allah Most High and the believers, and to subvert destiny, the Quran ominously declared, "And they the Jews plotted and planned, and Allah too plotted and planned, and Allah is the best of plotters and planners." Quran, Al-Imran 354. That strategy was successful in Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, all of which are client states of a godless USA, but that strategy has not succeeded in the Holy Land. Nor has it succeeded in Syria and Yemen. Readers of this book may wish to reflect over the prayer of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who prayed as follows. Narrated by Ibn Umar, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "O Allah, bestow your blessings on our Sham, Syria, and our Yemen." People said, "Our Najd is that part of Saudi Arabia from which the Saudi rulers have originated." The Prophet again said, "O Allah, bestow your blessings on our Sham and Yemen." They said again, "Our Najd as well." On that, the Prophet said, "There will appear earthquakes and afflictions, and from there Najd will come out the side of the head of Satan." Sahih Bukhari. Jewish State of Israel has completed 50 years of existence. But that is certainly not an achievement. Against the odds, as the Jews would have us believe. An essentially godless Zionist movement, Khan Banu Israel, with a mountain of lies. One such lie was the false slogan, "A land without people for a people without land." If the Arabs are not people, if they are just grasshoppers, as former Israeli Prime Minister Shamir once declared, did they not permit the Jews to dwell amongst them for more than 2,000 years? The Arabs guaranteed to the Jews security of life and property while they lived amongst them in the Arab lands for more than 2,000 years. The Arabs did all of this and more at a time when Europeans had closed their doors to Jews, or had reluctantly allowed them to live in ghettos. Arabs did this because they still possessed a remnant of the religion of Abraham that had come to them with Ishmael sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That remnant of the truth had taught them to show hospitality. To this day, the hospitality of the Arab has survived. The same religion of Abraham should have taught those Jews to show gratitude to hospitable grasshoppers. Zionism argued that truth, in Judaism, had conferred on the Jewish people exclusive, eternal, and unconditional title to the Holy Land. Zionism argued that restoration of the Jewish state of Israel, destroyed by Allah Most High some 2,000 years ago, validated Judaism's claim to an imperialist version of truth. After all, had the Torah not proclaimed, "Every spot on which your foot treads shall be yours," Deuteronomy 11:24. For 50 years since the birth of Israel, the world has watched in amazement the calamitous threading of Jewish footsteps in an ever-expanding Israel. That expansion has not as yet ceased. Despite the appearance that Israel is besieged and is circling her wagons to better protect herself from an Arab onslaught, the reality at the time that this book is being published, after the destruction of the Jenin refugee camp and the slaughter of so many more Arabs, is that Israel is preparing to unleash a major war on the Arabs, through which the frontiers of the Jewish state would dramatically expand, to embrace the biblical Holy Land, that is, from the river of Egypt, and this implies control over the Suez Canal, to the river Euphrates, and this implies control over all of the Gulf oil, with the possible exception of Iran's oil. Europe, Japan, and much of the rest of the world are dependent on that Gulf oil. That war, which would be planned with meticulous care, would also witness Israel replacing USA as the ruling state in the world. And so, from a biblical perspective, the Jewish success in restoring the state of Israel and in then expanding the territory of the state, in addition to Jewish control over the holy city of Jerusalem, certainly appears to validate Judaism's claim to truth. Our question is, how was this achieved without the Messiah? The answer is that it was achieved through the deception of a false Messiah, al-Masih, al-Dajjal. Again, the inescapable implication of the apparent success in restoring the biblical Israel was the validation of the Jewish claim that Jesus and Muhammad, peace be upon them, were both impostors. But in order for Israel to be created, Judaism had to hitch its wagon onto the newly emergent, essentially godless and decadent modern Western civilization. That godless Western world established its authority as the peerless dominant actor on the stage of the world, descending on mankind from every height, or spreading out in all directions, Surah Al-Anbiya 21-96, to control all the sea, land, and air. Nor could the Jewish state have survived these 50 years, but for the active assistance of that all-powerful, but godless and decadent West. Those Jews who support the state of Israel acclaimed what appeared to them to be the restoration of biblical Israel. But they conveniently ignored the great injustices and oppression inflicted upon a hapless Palestinian people, Christian, as well as Muslim, whose only sin appears to have been their residence in the Holy Land of the Jews. That injustice and oppression has been constantly increasing these 50 years. Our question to such Jews is this: is a valid claim to truth compatible with such godlessness, decadence, injustice, racism, and oppression? Can a people hitch their wagon to an essentially godless train and still claim to be faithful to the God of Abraham? The Zionist Jews argued that they did not drive the Palestinian people out of their homes, rather they left themselves. Well then, why did those Jews not preserve their homes for them as a sacred trust? And why did they not invite them to return to their homes? Instead, the Jews have persisted for 50 long, miserable years in obstinately denying them the right of return to the homes. Israel's wicked oppression continues to intensify every day. Israel will soon reach the pinnacle of false glory when she becomes the ruling state in the world. However, this book declares that the world is witnessing the beginning of the end for the impostor Jewish state of Israel. Jews should not blame Zionism for the plight in which they now find themselves. All that Zionism ever did was to exploit every single lie that was put into the Bible by embellishing those lies with a mountain of more lies. Jerusalem not mentioned by name in the Quran. Jerusalem in the Quran was written partly in response to the newspaper article of Daniel Pipes that was published in the Los Angeles Times. Jerusalem means more to Jews than to Muslims. July 21, 2000. In it, he attempted to dismiss any Islamic claim to Jerusalem by declaring of Jerusalem, among other things, that it is not once mentioned in the Quran or in the liturgy. Dr. Pipes and his media surrogates, who provoked us to respond, may wish to revise their opinion if they were ever to read this book. Indeed, a Muslim is duty-bound to respond to such hostile critics who persist in challenging Islam and the Quran, particularly so in respect of their new crusade on behalf of the Jewish state of Israel. Response should always be made through turning to the truth that is in the Quran. The Quran declares that when truth is hurled against falsehood, truth will always vanquish falsehood. And the believers have been ordered to use the Quran while waging a mighty struggle against the disbelievers. Regardless of whether Dr. Pipes accepts or does not accept Jerusalem in the Quran, it is clear that the study of this subject matter is basic for an understanding of the problem of Israel and Islam, and that is the primary importance of this book. Jerusalem, key to understanding the world today. It should now be clear that this subject is particularly important for all those Muslims who must comment on or respond to, the rapidly evolving awesome drama in Jerusalem. As long ago as 1974, the late Dr. Khalim Siddiqui, founder-president of the Muslim Institute for Research and Planning in London, urged this writer to produce precisely this book that would demonstrate that Jerusalem is the key to the understanding of the historical process as it manifests itself today. The Quranic view that emerges from this book clearly establishes that it is not possible for anyone to truly understand the modern world unless one can also penetrate the reality of Jerusalem today. The modern West wants an Islam to be adopted that will, among other things, accommodate the Jewish state of Israel and pave the way for Muslims to embrace it and make peace with it. This book has provided the Islamic response to that strategic goal of the West, a response that is based firmly on the Quran and the Ahadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This book has revealed that there will never be peace at any time in the future between the true followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Jewish state of Israel, and that the true followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will eventually triumph over the oppressor Israel and liberate the Holy Land of Israel's oppression. The most important of all subjects dealt with in the Quran that must be taught in Islamic educational institutions today is the subject of Jerusalem in the Quran. It is with this subject, more than any other, that Muslims can successfully respond to the present attack of the godless world, which forces upon them such modification of the faith as would accommodate Israel. Professor Dr. Ismail Raji Faruqi, the distinguished Palestinian scholar of Islam who was assassinated because he was a thorn in Israel's side, warned Muslims of this danger. The problem of Israel confronting the Muslim world today has neither precedent nor parallel in Islamic history. The Muslim world has tended to regard it as another instance of modern colonialism, or at best, a repetition of the Crusades. The difference is not that Israel is neither one of these, but that it is both and more. Unfortunately, there is no Islamic literature on the subject. The need for this analysis of the problem is, therefore, as great as the present moment, which calls upon the Arab world in particular and the Muslim world in general to accept Israel as an integral member of a world of Muslim nations in Asia, Africa. Islam and the Problem of Israel, Islamic Council of Europe, London 1980, ISBN 097163 025.